Alright, today we're going to introduce you to one of my favorite 3D modeling tools, which is SketchUp. And the way to find SketchUp easily is just to quickly Google it. And I encourage you to put free at the end, because there are other versions of SketchUp that are for advanced users. So once you find the SketchUp free link, click on it quickly, and you should reach this standard screen. Now, in order for us to get going, we're going to click on Start Modeling. And here you'll have a choice, either to use an existing email address, or I encourage you, if you have a Google account, to sign in with Google. And I have an account I've set up for this purpose. And it could take a few seconds for the software to load. Be patient. But this is one of my favorite free 3D modeling programs, so it's worth it. You'll need to check off I agree for the terms of service and click OK to get started. Your first view here shows where eventually all your files will live, and we just want to get started today to give you a quick tour to show you what tools you'll be working with. So first you'll see there's always a person to give us some perspective on how large we're drawing, and that is one of the original programmers of the program. So we're going to start quickly with the tools, and you'll see off to the left side here we have if you want to search for different objects, but we're going to stick to the tools today. First up is the selection tool, and the selection tool allows you to select any line, surface, or edge. In this case we could select the person, and we're going to delete them out of our way just to kind of be able to see what's going on moving forward with tools. Next up, we've got your eraser tool, and the eraser tool would erase any lines, edges, or surfaces if you need to. And then we get to the paint tool. You'll notice next to this it has a small arrow. That small arrow means there are multiple tools that may share the same space. So over the evolution of SketchUp, they've added new features and new tools. So if we click here, we'll see we have two different default tools. One actually even opens this window to the side. The paint bucket allows you to add any existing color or texture to the model. The sample material option would allow you to sample a color or a texture and then reuse it again in the same model. And for now, we're going to close that one up there. Next up, we have the line tool, and that is just for drawing straight lines from one point to the next, or to freehand. And on occasion, you may want to freehand draw within this environment in the future. Next up, we have our arc tool, and there are 4 different primary ways that you can draw arcs in SketchUp. For us, we're going to stick with a standard 3-point arc, although we'll explore some of these other options in the future as well. Next up, we have our shape tool, which starts out by default with the rectangle. The rotated rectangle, which will allow you to draw a rectangle in any direction or axis. Your circle tool. Polygon, which allows you to adjust the number of sides that you choose. And the 3D text tool. Next up, we've got probably one of our more powerful tools is the push-pull tool. And that one starts out with your standard push-pull being able to immediately pull any shape you've created into 3 dimensions. The follow me tool, which would allow you to carry shapes around the edges of objects or to customize different shapes you've already made. And the offset tool, which allows you to make an existing shape slightly larger or smaller than your original shape. And that can be useful for walls, which we'll talk about later. Next, we have the outer shell tool. This is a more advanced option for creating complex cuts and unique ways to look at different models once they've been created. Then we have our move tool, which within it has rotation and scale, which could be important to change the size of objects. Then to some of our measurement tools, starting with the tape measure. That allows you to click from any one point to any existing point, and you'll notice in the lower right corner of the screen, it'll show your exact dimension there. And within the measurement tool, we also are able to create dimensional labels if we want to label out the dimensions of objects. We're able to actually create text labels to point at different things in the model. Section plane will be a more advanced option to show the inside of structures or shapes once you've created them. Protractor will allow you to create specific angles within the model. And the axes tool would actually allow you to reassess or reassign the axes to any part of your model. And then finally, we've got the walk tools. Those are to create a tour of a model once you've created it. And there's a few options in there. And then finally, your navigation tools. And you'll see the orbit tool is there, allows us to actually orbit around the model. Your pan tool, which allows you to move things up, down, left, or right, kind of like you're reaching out to grab it and view it. The zoom tool, which will allow us to get closer up to any portion of the model, and you can also use your center wheel to zoom in and out. The zoom window tool, which will allow you to zoom into a specific area of the model just by creating a selection window. And finally, really important, if you get lost, the zoom extends would actually allow you to recenter the model immediately just by clicking once. So hopefully some of these tools will give you a good idea of how to get started in SketchUp. I recommend selecting a tool like the rectangle or any of the shape tools to start. Draw a shape starting at your point of origin, and then using the push-pull to start to experiment with how you might change that shape to pull it into a 3D object in any dimension. And if this looks interesting, take a few minutes to experiment, but next up we'll be looking at how to create a more specific object, a chair, in our next video.